Today, we're diving straight into the absolutely incredible life of Kevin Mitnick, a story that honestly completely shaped modern cybersecurity. Through his wild journey, we're going to see how he revealed a profound truth that still holds up today. And that is, the absolute greatest vulnerability in any computer system isn't the software, it's us. It's the human. All right, let's dive right into this.
So, to really get Mitnick, we've got to understand where his head was at. He didn't start out as some malicious threat trying to ruin lives or, extort millions of dollars. Actually, as he later told 60 Minutes, he viewed his early exploits as just a thrilling game of exploration on the early information superhighway. He was basically chasing an adrenaline rush. He literally said he felt like James Bond navigating these invisible digital corridors. It's fascinating, actually, because his childhood totally shaped his whole methodology. As a kid, Mitnick was absolutely obsessed with magic. But here's the kicker. He wasn't just looking at the tricks, he was studying the audience. He realized pretty quickly that exploiting the helpful, trusting nature of everyday people was the ultimate sleight of hand. If you can make people see exactly what you want them to see, you can get in anywhere. And that realization, that birthed his true superpower, which we now call social engineering. He figured out super early on that you don't really need to break complex cryptography if you can just, confidently ask someone for their password. It's a terrifyingly simple truth. It is almost always infinitely easier to hack a human than it is to hack technology. Section 1. The Art of Deception. Exploiting Human Nature.
Okay, picture this, because it brilliantly illustrates his early genius. It's 1975 in Los Angeles. Mitnick is just 12 years old, and he pulls off this incredibly simple three-step con. First, he casually chats up a bus driver, spinning this totally fake story about a school project, just to find out where the driver buys his special ticket hole puncher. Then, he literally follows the drivers back to the depot and digs through the dumpster for discarded blank ticket booklets. By punching the tickets himself, he earned free bus rides all summer long. The groundwork for his future was officially laid. By the time he hit high school, he had completely leveled up. He fell in with this fascinating community of early phone hackers known as phreakers. Mitnick was totally captivated by the social architecture of the phone companies. He'd just call them up, posing as a colleague, and seamlessly navigate his way from one internal department to another. Once, he even tricked a technician into setting up external call forwarding, which completely fooled the highly restricted non-pub bureau into handing over unlisted phone numbers. He even got Bruce Springsteen's. Section 2. Escalation and hacker hysteria. From pranks to paranoia.
Let's look at the infamous Cosmos raid. Cosmos was this massive database mapping out telephone networks, basically the holy grail for phreakers. Mitnick and his friends didn't hack in through a computer. They literally just walked right into the building. Mitnick told the security guard he worked there and was just giving his friends a quick tour. Just by brazenly pretending he belonged there, he bypassed physical security entirely, strolled into room 108, and walked right out with highly restricted system manuals. Just like that. But, he did eventually get caught for that Cosmos break-in, and it kicked off a really vicious cycle. Arrested at 17, he was given juvenile probation. Then, caught again in his early 20s at USC trying to steal student logins. He actually tried to go straight in the mid-80s, landing a totally legitimate programming job at the telecom company GTE. But after just 9 days, a routine security background check revealed his past, and they fired him. He just couldn't resist the adrenaline rush of the hack, even when he tried to stop. Now, this is an absolutely crucial point. There was a massive disconnect between what Mitnick was actually doing and how the authorities perceived him. In reality, Mitnick and his buddy Lenny were pulling off incredibly complex hacks, like copying the DEC virtual memory system's source code, mostly just for the intellectual thrill of it. But remember, it's the 1980s. The movie War Games had just come out and terrified the whole nation. So, fueled by this Hollywood hysteria, prosecutors drastically inflated his threat level. They literally told a judge that Mitnick could initiate a nuclear holocaust just by accessing air defense systems through a payphone. Wild, right? Section 3. Betrayal and the Run. The Thrill and the Snitch. So the mythology around him was growing darker, but his next downfall came from a totally petty dispute. Mitnick and his hacking partner Lenny had this ongoing rivalry, making little $150 dinner bets on who was the better hacker. When Lenny refused to pay up one day, Mitnick played a prank. He impersonated the IRS to garnish Lenny's wages. Well, Lenny was furious, and he turned Mitnick straight into the authorities. This led directly to an FBI sting in a parking garage, and Mitnick ended up spending a year in solitary confinement. Why? Largely because the authorities were still absolutely terrified of what he could do if he even got near a phone. Later on, after getting out on supervised release, Mitnick was just starved for that intellectual stimulation, and that addiction drew him to this self-proclaimed super hacker named Eric Hines. Mitnick was super paranoid by this point. He even swept the burger joint where they met for FBI wiretaps. But through some pretty brilliant counter-surveillance of his own, Mitnick discovered his personal phone was tapped,
And then he uncovered that Hines was actually an FBI informant named Joseph Warney. Knowing a raid was right around the corner, Mitnick wiped his drives, cloned his phone, and just went completely off the grid. Section 4. The Cybercat and Mouse. Baiting a cyber superhero. Now a fugitive and deemed cyberspace's most wanted, Mitnick made a massive error. He decided to pick a fight with literally the absolute wrong expert. Around Christmas 1994, Mitnick broke into the personal network of Tsutomu Shimomura. Now, Shimomura was a brilliant computer researcher who actually consulted for the FBI and the NSA, and instead of just laying low and staying quiet, Mitnick left these taunting, cryptic voicemails, mocking Shimomura's security and boasting about his own skills. Well, that backfired. It instantly made it Shimomura's personal mission to track him down. To actually break into Shimomura's system, Mitnick used this incredibly sophisticated technique known as IP spoofing. Essentially, he bypassed Shimomura's rigorous security by modifying the source address in data packets, so he was disguising his connection to look exactly like a trusted computer, and using that, he stole thousands of personal files and source codes. Section 5. The Final Takedown. Caught in the Web. So the digital manhunt is on. Shimomura starts following this digital breadcrumb trail. First, a stolen file containing 20,000 credit cards popped up on an online forum. Shimomura teamed up with the internet provider Netcom, and they started cross-referencing login times. They even went as far as installing a keylogger to silently watch Mitnick's keystrokes in real time while he was chatting with other hackers. Through this intense, non-stop monitoring, they traced his connection directly to an apartment complex in Raleigh, North Carolina. And that led right to February 15th, 1995. The FBI raided the Raleigh apartment. Mitnick tried to deny his identity at first, and, he had been using aliases for over 2 years. But during the search, agents checked the inner pocket of an old ski jacket and found a physical piece of paper. It was a pay stub with Mitnick's real name printed right on it. After years of manipulating the most complex digital networks in the world, the most elusive hacker was ultimately undone by a simple, old-school piece of paper. Section 6. The White Hat Legacy. The Free Kevin Era. When Mitnick finally went to trial, prosecutors absolutely threw the book at him. They claimed this apocalyptic financial toll, telling the court he caused a staggering $300 million in corporate damages across massive companies like Motorola and Nokia. That's a huge number, right? But as the trial went on, that entire terrifying narrative just completely fell apart. The $300 million figure completely evaporated. In the end, Mitnick was ultimately ordered to pay a mere $4,125 in restitution. I mean, those numbers alone really speak volumes about the intense paranoia of that era. He was ultimately sentenced to 5.5 years in prison, which, interestingly enough, sparked a massive Free Kevin movement globally among hackers who felt he was being totally scapegoated. After he got out, he had to endure a super strict 3-year ban where he wasn't even allowed to touch a computer or a cell phone. But here's the amazing part. Mitnick completely turned his life around. He realized that a single word, authorization, magically transformed him from a wanted criminal into a highly paid, incredibly sought-after security pioneer. He spent his second act helping companies patch the exact same holes he used to exploit. And that really brings us to our final thought. Kevin Mitnick passed away in 2023, but his legacy leaves us with a profound realization. Think about it. We spend literally billions on firewalls, complex encryption, and zero-trust networks today. But as we've seen throughout this explainer, no matter how unbreakable a system's code is, it only takes one person holding the door open or one person casually handing over a password on the phone to bring the whole thing crashing down. So is the human still the weakest link? Think about that the next time someone asks you for a quick favor online. Thanks so much for joining me, and keep your attention sharp out there.